Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. We are here live from the Chantilly, Virginia studios at Kardec Radio. And we are going to talk about whether or not we should vaccinate our babies. It's a very important topic, especially for those who are parents. It's a topic that cannot be overlooked. We need to discuss and we need to bring the Spiritist teachings to shed some light onto this very confusing topic that are creating a lot of commotion in the United States and around the world too. And to discuss this with us, we have our friend, who is also a host at Kardec Radio, Marco Magalhães. He's from the Toronto Spiritist Society, but scientifically he has a lot of background to help us understand the very matter we're going to discuss. He's a doctor in dentistry, and he's also a doctor in pathology. He has a lot to teach us too. So before we get to the very issue, we would like to share the news. Well, number one, please go to the website of the United States Spiritist Council to get your registration on the symposium that is going to happen on May 2nd. May 2nd. It's going to be the 8th U.S. Spiritist Symposium. Or go to the website spiritistsymposium.org. Also, if you want to know more information about the British Union of Spiritist Societies, go to their website as well. The British Union of Spiritist Societies has a lot of information and a lot of events that are happening. You just go to bussuk.webs.com, and they have Divaldo Franco there this coming May, and several beautiful seminars on April 18th. And Sinclair is going to give a mediumship seminar, and there's so much more there. Just go to the website, bussuk.webs.com, and you get to know more information about it. Now, let's go back to the very issue that we mentioned here. Dear listener, we are talking about vaccinating babies. Well, many parents are afraid to vaccinate babies just because they think their babies are going to be autistic, etc. Is that true? Is that a reality? What can science and Spiritism tell us about vaccination? It's so important. It's a social issue. It's a public health issue. It's beyond just your own option. You're talking about a decision that is going to affect everyone who is in your life. So let us talk about this right after the break and understand if there is anything in science and the Spiritist literature that can lead us into a greater understanding. Of course, if you have a question, you can ask us. You can call us. Our free toll number, 858-769-4705. Call us, ask your question, or make a comment. Or you can go to the chat room of Kardec Radio at blogtalkradio.com/Kardec Radio. When you get to the very program, if you're here live on Saturday morning, April 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can contact us and ask your question, make a comment by going to the chat room. Or you can send us an email at kardecradio@gmail.com, and we'll be always happy to listen from you. By the way, this week we got several emails, and there is one in particular that we want to talk about, which is an email about the program No Solar every Wednesday. It was such a beautiful feedback that we got. An email that tells about the very reading of the book No Solar. Ricardo Grellos. He is in California, in San Francisco. He participates at the Joana de Angelis Spiritist Society. And he says, I would like to show my appreciation for this show. I attend the studies at the Joana de Angelis Spiritist Society in California, and the coordinators of the course kindly decided to suggest to us to read one chapter of Nosso Lar every week as homework. They also recommended us to follow the podcast of Kardec Radio. And this might have become my favorite homework. It brings me peace and inspiration, plus the comments about the chapter offer so many insights that I'm really thankful for the work you've been doing. If I may make a very small suggestion, I would kindly ask if it's possible to include the chapter number on the podcast episode name. This helps when we're looking for a specific chapter on the list of the iPhone podcast app, since they mix up with other episodes. Thank you again for the kind efforts in propagating Spiritism and for helping to bring consolation to our hearts. These podcasts have enriched our learning about the consoling doctrine. And thank you so much, Ricardo, for your feedback. Thank you also, the group Joana de Angelis, for sharing this. These type of emails we receive every week, and we're reading this now because some people ask, well, what do the listeners say? Well, we're going to start bringing it to you here on the programs. And thank you for the feedback. Thank you also for those who are writing because they are enjoying the new segments that we have every Sunday. Now we have a rescue work by Pat Jennings from Florida, and it's amazing. Many people have been writing on Facebook because since Pat Jennings was invited to lead this segment every Sunday, he opened a Facebook page named Rescue Work. And you can participate joining in. And it's a beautiful discussion. He puts his questions and comments, and people from all over the world start jumping in and sharing their comments about such an important work, which is disobsession. You can also join it and exchange, and this work is ongoing. Now we also have a new segment by Julio Carvalho from New Jersey. It's about the Spiritist awareness brought to you every Sunday. We have also Marco Magalhães, who is here with us today, who will be soon on air tell us about vaccination in babies. So, without further ado, I will stream to you now a message that has everything to do with our journey in life, doubts, failures. Somewhat it has everything to do with what we're studying here today. So it's Joana de Angelis, do Divaldo Franco, in the book and CD, Living and Loving. If you want to buy the book or the CD, or the book and the CD, just go to the bookstore of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, ssbaltimore.org, and get to know more information, okay? After this, in a break, Marco Magalhães will be leading us into a new understanding of vaccinations in babies.
Chapter 16, Doubt and Failure.
To doubt is a healthy attitude when we seek a better understanding of the causes of things and situations. In scientific investigation, for instance, to doubt is a necessity until the findings are proved right. Schools of thought usually start with questioning in order to reach for new concepts and expanded information. Systematic doubt, however, expresses an imbalance of reason and generates emotional problems. As far as spiritual realities are concerned, no laboratory experiment has been able to prove that there is no intelligent life after death. On the other hand, there are facts that assert spirit survival to bodily death and its pre-existence to birth. Unstable people try to shun their assumed duties, excusing themselves with doubt, and do not care to persist in the search for spirit reality. A patient who doubts his own cure corrodes his mind with pessimistic thoughts and destroys the very elements which would promote health. Consequently, his pathological condition aggravates regardless of proper clinical treatment. A fighter who doubts his victory loses the combat before it starts. The farmer who doubts the potential in the seed and behaves carelessly will not see his plantation flourish. A business person who doubts the success of his trade gets easily discouraged and will certainly be disheartened by failure. Sometimes, doubt is an attitude of self-accommodation. The person tries to ignore new ideas and facts to avoid the need to change his way of living. Spiritual life and the interference of the dead in the activities of the living are realities taught by all ancient civilizations. The Spiritist doctrine, a legitimate heir to Christ's thoughts, has brought the essence of these teachings back without allegory, deception, or distortion. When confronted with problems of faith and behavior, examine critically the opinions presented to you, then study the teachings of the Spiritist doctrine to be able to discern more clearly. The laws of God are perfect, His providence merciful. Nobody is forgotten or spiritually orphaned. Liberate yourself from the petty conflicts of systematic doubt. A rational belief will open up new horizons for you. Doubt and disbelief generate great suffering. Remember what Jesus told the Apostle Thomas, who was doubtful whether the Master had really returned from the dead. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Getting to the Light. Spiritist Therapy for Discarnate Spirits is a small book that offers guidance to Spiritist practitioners and Spiritist counselors. Purchase your copy at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on a previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Help prevent suicide by reading and sharing these books with others. 2 great books are available to help in this Kardec Radio campaign to prevent suicide. Suicide, All You Need to Know, by the international Spiritist speaker Richard Simonetti. You can buy your copy at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. Also, Memoirs of a Suicide by the medium Yvonne Pereda. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Kardec Radio now offers more programs during the week and weekends. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can follow the beautiful program God at Home with Francisca Kranz and the British Spiritist community. They will brighten your days by doing a God at Home meeting wherever you are in the world, while teaching you how to do the same in your own home with your family and friends. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will hear incredibly inspirational Spiritist talks directly broadcasted by Spiritist Network. There will be true educational moments to carry out to immortality. Every Saturday, live interviews, Bridging Health and Spiritism with the host Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. You may ask questions to the interviewed guests by calling 858-769-4705. And every Sunday, tune in to Spiritist Awareness at Kardec Radio. You will hear a series of segments on a diversity of Spiritist topics. Kardec will broadcast the Spiritist Moment with Kirsten DeMello, the reading of the Spiritist book by John DeRosa and Steve Shepard, Spiritism in Your Life with Drs. Marco and Joyce Magalhães, Spiritism and the Gospel with Luis Sergio Marotta, Spiritist Education for Youth and Children with Bernadette Leal, Spiritist Music with James Marotta, Neuroscience and Spiritism with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and many more segments coming soon. Enjoy it all and nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
And now we return to our program.
And here we are, dear listener. We're going to talk about should we vaccinate babies? And the perspective is both scientific and spiritist to help us break down the highlights of the topic in the discussion. We have here with us our dear friend, Marco Magalhães. Thank you so much, Marco, for your time and being with us today at Kardec Radio.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's always a pleasure to be here and talk about this interesting topics and learn and help someone if we can.
Marco, you are there at the Toronto Spiritist Society. For those who are listening to us, we have listeners in more than 70 countries around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about the activities that happen at the Toronto Spiritist Society? And I know there is also the webcasting of some of the meetings, right?
That's correct. We've been pretty active, especially in the last 2 years. We've been adding numerous study groups as we have now on Wednesday nights and Thursday nights, going through the Gospel and going through the Spiritist book, and we have our webcasts every Sunday now that anyone in the world can actually go and log in the website. TorontoSpiritSociety.org, and there's links there for all our activities. We have a fraternal assistance now for everyone that would like to come in and in need. So we've been pretty active. We included now even Toronto Spirit Society for Children, which it's really part of what we're going to talk about today, is vaccinating in a spiritual, mental point of view, not only in the physical. So we're trying to do all that, even for babies. Now we have TSS for babies, what we call, and I think all combined, we're building this very strong place, for people to come in and help and share their ideas and activities.
That's great. And is there a website people can go to?
Yeah, that's www.torontospiritistsociety.org.
Okay, TorontoSpiritistSociety.org, right?
Yep.
Great. So, Marco, we're just talking about vaccination, and as a scientist yourself, what do you think about vaccination? What is the importance of vaccination?
That is, this is a topic that I really like talking about, Vanessa. I've done significant research in immunology, so and I can summarize the whole discussion today in basically 2 key points, which are basically true versus myth, and then the other one is like physical body versus spiritual body and spirit. So we have to somehow separate the discussion within those topics, because I think it's going to help people to understand. But in general, I would say the truth, and it's very simple, basic, and I think everyone should understand this, is that vaccine saves lives, period. Vaccines are not something human-made, created to make people sick, like some people postulate. On the contrary, it's a combination of scientific evaluation, trying to use our own system to protect ourselves against infections. And it's certainly been illuminated by a lot of spirits that came by with this mission of creating this amazing tool that we can actually avoid some suffering. Because even as the Gospel says, of course we're in a planet of trial expiations, but if we can do anything to alleviate the suffering of another person, that's what we have to do. And I think vaccines are part of that spectrum. And certainly, this is really something planned out by the spirituality for us to take advantage.
And can you just, of course, in more late terms, what is the process of vaccine? Because many people, I think, Marco, they are afraid of, a vaccination because they don't know what it is. They don't know the process, the mechanism, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's very important for people to understand that, in very basic lay terms. So vaccines, basically, we take some pathogens or some bugs or bacteria or viruses, depending on what we're trying to protect against. And either we take pieces or parts of them that our immune system recognizes, and we build that vaccine based on those little markers that we can actually recognize as foreign or as a bacteria or as a pathogen. And when we challenge our immune system, and we take advantage of a very important aspect of our immune system, which is actually build a memory. So we can actually, our immune system builds a memory against infections that we've had or we're exposed to. So if we get that infectious agent and turn it into a non-infectious agent and challenge ourselves, our immune system with it, we create a memory against it. And then what happens is, later on, if we're exposed to the real bug, we don't have an infection because our immune system can actually remember really well that we've been exposed to that antigen or to that bacteria or viruses. And then all of a sudden we don't have the infection. And then we can prevent in a very efficient way based on our own immune system. So basically it's not a drug, it's not chemical, it is really just using our immune system to actually prepare itself ahead of time to a potential serious infection. And that's what a vaccine is.
That's beautiful. It's as if we're saying, hey, buddy, this is something you need to recognize when it gets there. Go fight against it, right?
That is correct, and that's and that's exactly what. And we're doing something very physiological in a way, which means that it's very normal to our body to do that, and we do that on a daily basis. And that's and the immune system in that aspect, it's so important that one of the reasons why our physical body developed to the stage that we have today, that we can actually live longer and live so many years, is that we built this very strong, comprehensive response against an enormous amount of antigens and bacteria and viruses. And that's why we can live, because there's a lot of syndromes where our immune systems don't work, and when that happens, the consequences are very bad.
That's beautiful. But now we need to start getting into the scientific understanding of why do we need to do this in babies and not later, when they grow adults. Why is it important to start vaccinating them, in the first months of life, since they are in the first months of their lives?
Sure, Vanessa, and I think it's another very important topic that a lot of people have questions about. And the answer is quite simple. So if you think that we're protecting our bodies using our own immune systems against the potential infection, so the earliest in time we can do that, the better the protection is going to be against this antigen. So basically we're not going to have time to get in contact with the bacteria or the virus. And so basically we catch it before we have the potential of getting contact with it and developing the disease. So for some diseases, for example, and I will give you an example, hepatitis B, which is quite lethal, and it's a very serious disease. The recommended immunization for children is actually starting at 1 month. And we have to do 3 shots for this one in particular because we have to build up a response over time. But we have to start very early because if the kid get in contact, or the newborn get in contact with the virus before the vaccination, then it's a very serious infection. But if we start very early with the vaccination, so we have a very good coverage or response against the virus. And we have other examples. For example, we have a influenza virus, which starts about 6 months. And many others that start very early on. That's, just basically what we're trying to do is to build the immune response before we have a chance to get in contact with that particular disease.
So some people, Marcos, they say that the problem is, they are too young, the immune system is not mature yet, it's useless to give them these shots at an early stage. Is it a myth?
Well, Yeah, Vanessa, it's quite interesting because we're when we're thinking that way, we're disregarding the beautiful and complex machine that we take advantage and incarnate on while on this planet, which is our bodies. Actually, our bodies are pretty well developed, and our immune system is developing, sure, all the time. Like, our immune system has a plasticity, what we call, has a chance to adapt and change to situations all the time. And even before we think of a baby at 1 month old, that baby is already putting the immune system to recognize so many things on a routine basis, anything that we got in contact with. So that's actually not true, in the point that actually in the opposite, the immune system is very, very active at that time of our life. And in very young babies, it's actually extremely active, because that's the time, the window in time, that the baby's going to have pretty much everything that it gets in contact with. It's going to be defining whether it is actually fine, or if it's infectious, or should I build an immune response against it, or should I not? Those are the answers that the body is doing at a very, very young stage in life. And it's even interesting because a lot of people proposed at some point that we should avoid kids being exposed to a lot of things during that time, because we could build allergies and a lot of defective immune responses later in life. But now we just realize that we're doing the wrong thing altogether, because the reality is, if we do get exposed to a lot of things during that time, very young babies, I'm thinking about months, like 1 to 6 months, our body will have a chance at that time to recognize a lot of things as normal or abnormal much better than if we're exposed later on in life. Then our body is actually missing now that capacity of telling perfectly whether something's benign or something's bad, and I should build a reaction against it. So actually it's the contrary. We should do it very early on.
But there were studies. There was actually one study by a scientist that later he retreated the paper, in which he linked vaccination in babies with autism. So that research is already a fraud, and he already confessed it. But the myth goes on and on and on, and there are parents around, especially the United States, who stopped vaccinating their children because they think they are going to become autistic. What is this in science? What would you say science can tell us about that, Marco?
Vanessa, I think that's one of the key points of even any discussion about vaccination today. And unfortunately, the gentleman that produced that paper, Dr. Wakefield, so I'll just give you a brief history of that paper so people understand why, when we say, why scientists, because sometimes scientists are seen as like evil people. I don't know why. It's like some people look at us as evildoers sometimes. But anyways, so we do something really good, actually. So, and we created a system to recognize when there's a problem, and we correct it. So it's a self-correcting system science created, but we can go over that at some point. But so basically, Dr. Wakefield looked at 12 kids. And this 12 kids, he was a gastroenterologist and surgeon. So he looked at 12 kids that had inflammation in the bowel, symptoms in the spectrum of autistic disorder, so autistic disorder spectrum, and a history of vaccination against measles, and that's MMR vaccine. That's a triple combined vaccine. So in his analysis of just 12 cases, he looked at reports trying to correlate in time whether the vaccination was correlated in time with the start of the symptoms on those kids. Well, there are many issues with that, and I don't have time to go over all those, but what people realized shortly after the study was published, people tried to reproduce that, and that's how science kind of self-corrects itself when something's really outlying. And they've realized first that, well, no one could ever replicate that type of analysis. And then they started to look back in the paper and they realized that there were so many methodological mistakes and even data that was actually created, not real data, that was embedded into the paper. that automatically the journal decided to take it out of publications or retract it. And then looking further into matter, they've realized that the gentleman that actually produced the paper had significant conflicts of interest regarding vaccines. So altogether, there was a big disaster. But unfortunately, people still are hooked onto that idea. And for some reason, that built up strength recently because people associate being natural and eating well and living well and doing things in a natural, free kind of I would even say like a normal way of things, living close, like eating things that are more healthy. They associate that with actually not being vaccinated, which is something that's a new trend in the system now. And because they want to support the idea that being vaccinated is unnatural, and now they pulled this paper that was retracted many years ago to support, see, that's what I'm saying, like vaccines are bad. Well, that's a big issue because MMR vaccines alone probably saved about, according to the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, 15 million lives. 15 million lives in the last 15 years, including in all countries in the world. But now people still go back to that paper of those 12 children, which are actually not true, and reported as being bad, and I'm not going to vaccinate. And I think that's a big problem. And I think most because science does a bad job in explaining what we do. And I think that's another part of the problem. Because if we explain better what we're doing, certainly people would understand in a much better way of why we should vaccinate.
And it's interesting you're saying that because when we talk about vaccinations, etc., what surprises me the most, as you're saying, about people who are natural, organic, etc., I've heard so many people who are alternative medicine practitioners saying, don't vaccinate the baby, blah, blah, blah. And I say, you don't know what you're talking about. Just because they are against pharmaceutical companies, because they're against, these big, giant, monopolistic pharmaceutical companies, they are against vaccination. But one thing has nothing to do with the other. Going natural, eating organic, and going for complementary medicine approaches has nothing to do with stopping vaccinating your babies. On the contrary, you have to be smart. Knowing the difference between what is wrong and what is right. And I think, Marco, socially and psychologically speaking, what these people are doing is generalizing. They are seeing something bad about a pharmaceutical company, and they are generalizing it to everything around. And generalization is a form of being ethnocentric, thinking like, once I'm natural, I discard everything else that doesn't seem natural. But as you said, vaccination goes along the natural process of the body. You're not going against it. You're not creating any artificial means. You're just using your own natural system to be stronger. I tell baby Virginia all the time, I don't like vaccinating her because it's painful, but at the same time I tell her, today you're going to be stronger than yesterday. And that's a blessing of God, because centuries ago children would die for diseases that make no sense whatsoever to die in the modern times, right, Marco? That's correct. And I think, evolving as a human being and spiritually, I think, of course, those are Spiritism tells us very clear that happens side by side, hand in hand. One thing, both are very well interconnected. And developing our medicine is part of a blessing from above that allow us to deal with
things that are still associated with our level of development, of evolution. So we're still we can still be plagued with disease of any sources and kinds and bugs and bacteria and all that, because that's our stage of evolution. And our body, our physical body, is still very well connected with that physical nature of the infection. That is something that we cannot change. That's reality, and that's where we live today. Living a nice and, like you said, living a nice, natural, good life is amazing. It's perfect. But we cannot disregard the fact that we still have a body that we have to take care, and we have to use all the tools that we have available to, and the law of self-preservation. That's what we're trying to do. And Vanessa, it's interesting because what I'm exposed to anti-medication and anti-vaccines on a daily basis, because I deal with a lot of chronic diseases and a lot of patients with chronic diseases. And I can tell you that there's an effect in science that is very well described, which is this kind of a close proximity effect, what I call, so that, if someone knows another person that had something that was potentially associated with a medication or a disease, then it doesn't matter how much science will tell you the contrary, they'll firmly believe that that's what happened. Well, but the big problem with that is that, I'll give you one example. So I had a patient coming in, and the patient tells me that, firmly believing that her neighbor daughter is now having this very strange skin reactions because there was a HPV vaccine 2 weeks before. And so that's a first close proximity relationship and time relationship, because anything that happens after you take a vaccine, people would automatically say, well, that's the vaccine. And that's another big, big problem we have in the media today, because anything in the world that happens with a patient that takes a vaccine will automatically be linked to the vaccine. And there's no causal relationship ever produced. And then we can look at the CDC website. They have data on every single reported case of adverse reaction to vaccines. You can read through it, you can look at it, you can look at correlation, causation. Those are the big issues in science. But people will firmly believe that, well, something happened, it's due to the vaccine. And then even if you prove it contrary, let's say it was an infection that had not to do with the vaccine and the patient's treated and well, people will still remember that. And they will use that against scientific evidence. For example, for the MMR vaccine, which is the case that we're talking about with Dr. Wakefield and the autism relationship, there were over 100 publications after that one debunking that theory. 100. But no one ever cites those publications because they don't care. Like it seems like I don't believe in that, so I believe in the one paper that happened many years ago, so I still cite that paper, but I'll disregard 100 papers that collectively reported over 1.2 million children evaluated and no link ever of MMR and autism. So it simply does not exist, period. Like it is not true. But unfortunately, our eyes are much more, linked towards the desperation of someone that reports that there was a problem with the vaccine than this massive amount of data. And what people say, and people will tell me sometimes in the clinics, like, well, that's because people are, scientists are backed up by pharmaceutical companies. And that is absolutely not true. Like, if scientific research in the United States and Canada, I would say in particular, is primarily government funded. So in the United States, it's a good mix. It's almost like 50%. But in Canada and other countries, it's primarily government or non-governmental agency funded. It has nothing to do with pharmaceutical companies. On the contrary, we publish more against the pharmaceutical companies than actually in favor of them, if you look at the retrospectively. But people still have that notion that, well, we're all trying to back up some pharmaceutical companies, which is absolutely not true. Or they try to say that, well, we're gaining some, or we're making something out of it, and that's absolutely not true. Like, we don't make anything out of the research. And I mean, and that's unfortunate, because I see myself doing research in cancer as I do, and I can see people outside probably saying, oh, you're probably, you're probably doing something for a pharmaceutical company, and that's so not true. That's the contrary. I'm trying to make something that people will actually be happier and healthier, and that's in the majority. 99.9% of scientists are like that. I can attest for that.
Now, yeah, it's beautiful. Let me do the following. I have to go for a break, Marco, but when we come back, we need more information, probably some that will be very critical for people who are still in doubt about the importance of vaccination in babies, okay? Right after the break.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, André Louise emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want spirituous books for your children? At Ediceife of America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the spirit May through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelson Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council.
Dear listener, we're back, and we are here back to talk about vaccination in babies. Now, Marco Magalhães is doctor in dentistry, doctor in pathology, and many other things. And forgive me, Marco, if by any chance or means I'm just shortening the many credentials here, but we know you have a lot of knowledge to share with us here, especially about this very topic. And we're talking about vaccination in babies, how important it is scientifically, and how natural it is. Though, as a neuroscientist of pain, Marco, I tell you, it's a shame on us, scientists who have not discovered yet a less cruel way of vaccinating babies. For me, that's the worst part of it. I mean, I don't think the process is risky at all, but I think just the painful moments, I mean, that part of it I really do not like, and I feel very sorry for the babies, and I feel it's shame on science for not having created a less painful process. Don't you think so?
Well, I have to agree with that. Of course, I've never seen anyone in my career that actually told me that they'd like to take a needle. I'm yet to find one that says, well, yeah, I'm happy doing this. So no one likes it, especially being trained as a dentist, too. I can tell you really well that how people are actually afraid, not only babies, but a lot of adults. And so, but unfortunately, the way our immune system works and the way that we deliver things at this point, and I'm sure things will change at some point, but at this point, in order for us to deliver that bacteria product or that antigen or whatever is the protein that's being used to trigger our immune system to react against the pathogen, it cannot be done through other routes. We have to put it straight in. Otherwise, it's degraded, it's lost, it's not effective. So, unfortunately, at this point, needles are pretty much the only option for an efficient delivery of the vaccine. There are other options being tested, though, and I have to put this here very clearly. There are nasal sprays, there are oral vaccines. Those are all well on their way into delivery, and it may be a very effective way very soon, but we still don't have the technical ability of transforming that into reality. For what I'm talking about is like a really like a populational type of approach where everyone would benefit from that. So there's still a lot of variability, not very efficient in some ways. So, but there's a lot of research on that, Vanessa. So don't worry, I can tell you.
I know, it's coming along.
It's coming.
But Big Virginia will be past that day. I'm joking.
Right.
I'm joking. No, but I understand. It's coming along, and it's actually long coming, but it's surely one day it's going to happen. But Marco, I think probably you agree that Spiritism brings a point of view on the importance of vaccinating babies that is creates greater understanding on its importance. Would you say Spiritism vouches for the importance of vaccinating baby, and why?
Vanessa, I think that I certainly agree with that, and I think Spiritism fully supports this tested, secure, and safe medical treatments that will prolong life, decrease suffering, and make us do our trials in a much better way, at least in our physical body stand of view. And I think even if you look back at Chico Xavier, I think he was a very good example of this. You know, when he had an issue, medical issue, and it was a physical problem in his body, he really sought the doctor, and he said, I think this guy's trained to take care of me, and I think that's where I should go. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm seeing this in the Spiritist movement in general. Sudden shift towards anti-medicine, anti-conventional medicine thoughts. And I think that's very, very dangerous. And we can actually go through that idea in more detail in a minute. But going back to vaccinations per se, I think, first of all, vaccines are certainly a gift from God. That's no doubt about it. The spirits that came by very early on in the 1890s and the early 1900s that first discovered, for example, the pertussis toxin vaccine and the passive immunization that saved so many lives. Those are certainly elevated spirits that came here to help us, and we should not take it as against Spiritism. On the contrary, I think this is really something that God has given us as a gift, as a scientific development that we can protect ourselves. Now, going to the Gospel according to Spiritism, it is very clear in every single passage that the first one who ever said that we should vaccinate ourselves was Jesus, at least reported in the Gospel. And he was talking about vaccination in a very different way, which is vaccinating the evil doing. But the mechanism of the vaccination is the same. If you think vaccination is something that you do to protect yourself against potential evil in the future or potential problems, certainly vaccinating your physical body is very similar to vaccinating your spiritual body. And I don't think there's a huge difference there. And Spiritism certainly supports that, for example, with prayer, meditation, passes. That's all part of the healing process for our spiritual body. While the vaccination will be a protective point of view, but for the physical body, which is also very important. And I think it's certainly Spiritism is completely in line with that. And I think spiritists in general should be very careful in building up ideas that are opposing conventional medicine as conventional medicine being something evil or not or wrong, or because unfortunately I'm seeing that very, very often. I'm very scared of that, actually.
And it goes against, because even the mentors told Kardec, if science says something one day and it's the opposite here from our side, keep yourself aligned with science. And why is that? Because science is the new guru or oracle? No, because science is proving something that cannot be dismissed unless facts say otherwise, right? So here we are also talking about, let us also talk about the behind the scenes of this reality of being a spirit in the physical body. We're living in an incarnation. We have a physical body. And we know, especially by the reports of André Luiz, that we create mental bacteria when we think negative thoughts and we have negative feelings. And those mental bacteria, they can attract actual bacteria or viruses in the physical realm, predisposing us to illnesses. Is that right, Marco?
That is absolutely correct. And André Luiz, there's many reports, but in the Missionaries of the Light, for example, he describes really well those thoughts, ill thoughts, will generate some kind of a particle like dark energy that he describes as a little bug, a little bacteria, or a little vibrio, as he calls, or a little larvae, that will target specific organs. And I think the immune system is, and that's why I'm so amazed by our immune systems, because I think our immune systems are the easiest way for you to see the connection between our spirit, us as a spirit, and our physical bodies, because it is so tightly connected between them, and those bacterial thoughts, I would say, they would accumulate in certain areas, as you very well said, and they interfere dramatically with the energy and the vibration of that specific area that will do two things. First of all, will attract bugs to that specific area and will facilitate infections, facilitate immune-mediated diseases, which I think are completely related to us from our spiritual point of view, not related to physical. There's no real physical explanation for them. And they combine all those together. So it's a perfect link between we as spirits and our spiritual bodies, and how one influences each other. Because for people that are listening that maybe are not completely aware, so the spiritual body is in a very, very tight connection with the physical body, and issues in the physical body can imprint themselves in the physical body and vice versa. So issues with your physical body can manifest or purge through your physical body and manifest as diseases. So that's the tight relationship. And I think looking from the aspect of spiritism then, so every time you pray, you're automatically injecting the medication that will help you. Every time you elevate your thoughts, you're cleansing your mind from that type of vibration that can actually lead to the disease. So in a way, you're really like vaccinating yourself and protecting against potential influences that you may find in the future. And that's alleviating your trials for sure. But unfortunately, because of the level of evolution we are right now, we're still susceptible to certain infections that even if we eat well, sleep well, do everything good, and eat healthy foods and pray every day, we may still be subject to some viral infections, for example. And that's part of who we are at this point. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it unless protect ourselves. There's a vaccine available.
And that's beautiful, because Spiritism would then vouch for the fact that when we are making the body stronger, we are also, let's talk about the reverse, because Kardec says that whatever happens to the body, in a way, can, in a parallel form, affect the spiritual body and the spirit. So in this case, since we know, Marco, that the spiritual body is the mode, is the organizing model for the physical body, when we are vaccinating the physical body, what is probably happening, and this is just hypothesizing according to the studies we have this far in Spiritism, what do we probably have at the spiritual body or perispirit level happening there?
I think that's an amazing thought, Vanessa. And like you said, we're really hypothesizing here. There's no
text on it.
Yeah, there's no proven report of exactly what's happening from the spiritual side of things, so we can refer to. But if we really understand what the physical body is, which is this semi-physical body that really interconnects everything together and serves as a mold, like as this shape-forming institute for the physical body. Certainly, anytime for example, if you challenge your physical body with certain bacteria, so let's say like a dead bacteria that some vaccines use. This bacteria is dead, it's not causing the infection, but can trigger immune response, right? So a lot of vaccines do that. So you take that vaccine, and then your immune system reacts to it. And then it builds this response. It gets stronger, actually. A lot of people think it's the opposite. It actually gets weaker. No, it actually gets stronger. And these memory cells that are created, certainly they vibrate in a certain type of energy that's actually quite harmonized with your system now, because they're really like this early response engines against the bacteria, an infection that you could potentially have. That type of energy certainly imprinted in your spiritual body and makes you stronger. I think the relationship is always, I would say, it's always in a positive way. So if it is a direct mechanism that if you get better physically, your spiritual body will also vibrate in a higher mode. And I think vaccination does the same trick. I think if you boost your immune system, because vaccines are actually boosting your immune system, right? Differently from a lot of people support and say sometimes in the media, then all of a sudden you're also building up a stronger spiritual body. And let's say after multiple rounds of incarnation, one day you may not even need vaccines anymore. And I think that's where we're going towards in the future. I don't know when. It's probably not. We're not going to see this in this incarnation. All of us. I'm sorry. We're going to miss that boat. We may be coming back and see what happens afterwards. But what's happening is that later on, after multiple rounds of evolution, we don't need vaccines anymore, because the vaccines are all going to be mental. All the vaccines are going to be based on we as a spirit. And that's where we're going. But at this point of evolution, we need help. We need any help we can. And I think that's where vaccination comes in, tied in with the Spiritism, basically. I think that's where it comes in today in our level.
And I hope one day we have vaccines against bad feelings, bad thoughts. But as you said, that would be the best part of it. Like, I'm feeling jealousy. Okay, here's some remedy. But to prevent it, here's a vaccination. I'm joking about it, but vaccine is so important. It's such a concession of God, as you said. It's a gift of God for us on the earth that we would not only recommend but urge parents around the world, please vaccinate your babies. Pray before you go. Let's talk now about preparation for it, Marco, because when I talk to Carlos, my husband, about this, we often prepare ourselves and prepare baby Virginia the night before going to the vaccination. So she doesn't feel much of the pain, but feels how much we're caring for her, because we're giving the best we can by giving her better protection to live in an incarnate life as a stronger human being so she can reach out to other people as well. Let us talk more about tools we can do to prepare ourselves for vaccination. If parents feel afraid or uncomfortable, and we know our children, it's not an easy experience, what else can we do to prepare ourselves for vaccination in babies?
Well, Vanessa, that's a very good point. I think that's also valid for any time you actually go seek medical treatment. I think that's a very similar type of preparation that you probably need. Now, the only difference now, we're talking about a little recent incarnate spirit in the little body that certainly needs a lot of attention. So I think one of the most important things we can do, and this is referred in the literature, not only spiritist literature, but it goes far through the even from Christ himself. Do a little gospel reading. So open up a good book, sit down, read, think about the message, and do a little prayer. By doing that automatically, all you're doing, like you're changing the whole vibration of the whole place where you are. Like if you're at home, that's why we do the gospel at home, you're certainly changing everything. And have the baby there. Because the baby, unfortunately, our physical eyes look at a baby as this being that doesn't understand anything. But the contrary, and you know that probably more than I do, they know everything that's going on. They can sense things. They can sense your stress. They can sense your feelings towards the situation. And certainly spiritually, they're much more connected spiritually than actually we are, because we build them a lot of roadblocks after we get old and we mature, I would say, in a way. But there's still very open connection to the surroundings. So certainly explaining, and I mean it to the parents. You're not really tell your baby. You can think that they're not listening to you, but they are. Although they may not understand your words from a linguistic perspective, they understand the meaning of words very well when you say it. So explain what's going to happen, why is it important, and most importantly, be there for your kid. Because the kid needs to understand that that's something that's supported by the parents, and we're doing this together, and this is all for the good cause. And certainly putting all that together with a good inspirational message reading and a prayer will certainly help you. And pray for the physician. Pray for the hospital. Pray for whoever created that vaccine.
The nurse,
right? Yeah, so you have to put it all in a package, because then you're certainly going to be helped all the way along. And I agree with you, Vanessa, because when I take Daniel to vaccinations, he never cried. He never cried in any vaccine so far, which is, I've never seen that before. He's fine. Of course, he does like this, unhappy face when it happens. Well, that's obvious. There's pain associated with it. But he's completely fine with it. And he's all happy and never had any reactions to it. So I think it's part of it is really preparing. And because imagine the contrary. You're stressed. You don't believe in what's about to happen. You create an atmosphere around you that this is not going to work. And certainly this may not work. It may not work in many levels. It may not work because your antibodies do not respond. And we have a lot of examples of this. People get vaccinated and don't form antibodies against the vaccine or the bacteria. So in a way, like your immune system is not doing the job that it's actually supposed to do. Is that related to the spiritual aspects of things? Of course it is. I think the immune system is really responding to your mind at that point, and not to the bug or the vaccines. Really respond to your thoughts, as Andrea Luis put it really well at some point. So the immune system is a combination between that. So if your thoughts are not aligned, balanced, certainly your immune system is not going to respond adequately to the situation. And I think that's another important aspect of it.
Yes, you're right. You're very right. So, Marco, it's such a beautiful thing, and Spiritism is in good alignment with science. We are finally at a time on the earth in which spirituality, science, religion, philosophy can walk hand in hand, side by side, without conflicts, without difficulties, differences. On the contrary, it's complementary, and Spiritism has been the bridge for such conversations. And when we talk about vaccination in babies, we want to reassure the listeners it's a good thing for the whole being, not only the physical body, but for the spirit, the soul that is incarnated and needs a stronger protection to live better without impediment. So, Marco, because of time, we're going to just give some outline, like highlights for those who just logged in now at Cardiac Radio and listening to us. Can we just summarize to them from a scientific and spiritist perspective the importance of vaccinating, please?
Excellent. So, first and most important, vaccines are very well controlled, are tested and retested multiple times. Scientists do as much as they can of a good job to make sure people are safe taking vaccines. Vaccines are safe. Links the vaccine with autism spectrum disorders, and other reported conditions have not been proven whatsoever. Actually, most studies show that there's actually not even a link between them. They're not even related. So they are safe in that aspect. Importantly, vaccines are a gift from God. This is important to you, especially if you're a religious person and you think that vaccines are unnatural and something that should not be done. It's quite the opposite. Vaccines use a natural immune response. It's really your body creating the defenses. Vaccines themselves, there are no medications on it. It really is just a trigger for your immune system to respond and adequately fight an infection whenever you get exposed to it. So that's very important. Spiritism certainly can explain things from both a spiritual and physical perspective. So physically, we still need to be vaccinated. God allows us to develop these vaccines so we can live in this planet, in this incarnation, with a better life in general, avoiding some of the health problems that we had in the past that were certainly necessary for that era of evolution. So if you don't need them now, God allows us to actually fight them quite adequately with vaccines. And spiritually speaking, we are boosting ourselves, our immune systems, our spiritual body, and our physical bodies. So that's another important point. And I think, Vanessa, one thing that we didn't mention, and I think I have to bring that up, vaccines are only helpful if about 95% of people are vaccinated, because the 95% can actually account for the other 5% that are not vaccinated, because they cannot be vaccinated. And I just want to make it clear here. Some people cannot be vaccinated, period, because of health conditions, because of immune problems, because of allergies, and those cannot be vaccinated. They can only be covered if 95% of us are actually protected. Then the virus or the bacteria does not have a chance to spread. And unfortunately, we're talking about our vices here and how sometimes we're so selfish that we think that, okay, I don't want to be vaccinated and that's it. When you do that, and unfortunately, it may be shocking to parents that are anti-vaccine, but unfortunately that's the truth. You are responsible for a lot of people getting the condition, getting the disease, right? And it's another very important topic to bring in. And another myth that babies are so young they can't be vaccinated. That's quite the opposite. That's a perfect age to be vaccinated because your immune system's quite fluid. It's reacting to a lot of things. It's starting to understand what it should react to or should not. And vaccines are perfectly in that time because they're fully capable of developing this immune memory against the pathogens. So it's perfect. It is safe. It is certainly a blast of God that allows us to do this, and you take advantage of our own immune systems. And I think everyone should certainly read about it, understand what it is, how natural it is, and dissociate the image of vaccines being unnatural or unhealthy, or because that's quite the contrary. Vaccines will avoid you being in hospitals, taking medications, taking time off, and that's certainly unnatural for us to be taking a lot of later on in life. So vaccines are actually quite good in that way too, because they're avoiding a lot of problems.
That's beautiful, Marco. It summarizes and brings so much awareness, and it gets rid of so many doubts. To wrap up the program, Marco, would like to invite you to help us. We're celebrating 150 years of the book Heaven and Hell, as you know, and every Saturday we stream a case of the book. And today we have a 5-minute case that is going to be broadcast. It's from the book Heaven and Hell. It's named La Mare. Would like to listen it with the listener and you, and have you have some comments about it too. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Thank you.
An excerpt from the book Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec, Part 2, Chapter 6, Les Mères. Condemned to death by the Assize Court at Assini and executed on December 31st, 1857, evoked on January 29th, 1858. And so Kardec began with his questions. Evocation.
I'm here.
What are your feelings at seeing us?
Shame.
Did you remain conscious up to the last moment?
Yes.
Immediately after your execution, were you aware of your new existence?
I was plunged into great confusion, and I haven't yet come out of it. I felt a serene pain, and it seemed like it was my heart that suffered it. I saw something I couldn't recognize it roll at the foot of the scaffold. Then I saw blood flowing, and my pain became even more acute.
Was it a purely physical pain, similar to that caused by a serious wound, by the amputation of a limb, for example?
No, it was more like remorse, a great mental pain.
When did you start feeling it?
As soon as I was free.
Was the physical pain caused by the execution felt in your body or in your spirit?
The mental pain was in my spirit. My body felt the physical pain, but my spirit, separated from the body, also felt the physical pain.
Did you see your mutilated body?
I saw something formless, which seemed I was still part of. However, I felt myself intact outside of it. I was myself.
What impressions did this sight make on you?
I felt my pain a lot. I was completely lost in it.
Is it true that the body still continues to live for a few moments after being beheaded, and that the execution victim remains conscious of his thoughts?
The spirit withdraws little by little. The more the material ties interlace it, the less prompt its separation.
Some have said that they have seen an expression of anger and physical movements on certain execution victims' faces, as if they wanted to speak. Is that an effect of nervous contractions or an actual act of the will?
Of the will, since the spirit hasn't left yet.
What did you feel first upon entering your new existence?
Unbearable suffering, a sort of acute remorse whose cause I didn't know.
Did you find yourself in the company of your accomplices who were executed at the same time?
To our disgrace, yes. Seeing one another is constant torment. Each blames the others for his crime.
Have you encountered your victims?
I see them. They are happy. Their gaze persecutes me. I feel it piercing deep inside of me. I try to flee it in vain.
What feelings do you experience when you see them?
Shame and remorse. I myself caused it, but I still hate them for it.
What feeling do they experience at your sight?
Pity.
Do they display hatred and the desire for vengeance?
No. Their wishes are for my expiation. You can't imagine the horrible torture in owing everything to those we hate.
So do you regret your corporeal life?
I regret only my crimes. If I had it to do it all over again, I wouldn't succumb.
Was the penchant toward evil in your very nature, or were you influenced more by the environment in which you lived?
The tendency towards evil was in my very nature because I was an inferior spirit. I wanted to ascend too quickly and ask for more than I was capable of. I thought I was strong, and so I chose a tough trial. But I gave in to the temptations of evil.
If you had received a solid education, would you have bypassed a life of crime?
Yes, but I had chosen beforehand the conditions into which I was born.
Could you have become a moral man?
A weak man, incapable of doing either good or evil. During my life, I could have corrected the evil of my nature, but I could not have raised myself up to the good.
Do you believe in God while alive?
No.
Nevertheless, it is said that at the last moment you repented. Is that true?
I believe in a vengeful God. I was afraid of His justice.
And now, is your repentance more sincere?
Alas, I can see what I have done.
What do you think about God now?
I sense Him, but I don't comprehend Him.
Do you think the punishment inflicted upon you on earth was just?
Yes.
Do you expect to be forgiven for your crimes?
I don't know.
How do you intend to redeem them?
Through new trials, but it seems like there is an eternity between them and me.
Where are you now?
I am in my suffering.
We mean, in what place?
Right next to the medium.
Since you are here, in what form would you appear to us, if we could see you?
In my bodily form, my head separated from my body.
Could you appear to us?
No, leave me be.
Would you tell us how you escaped from the prison at Montdidier?
I don't know anymore. My suffering is so great that I have nothing but the memory of my crime. Leave me be.
Can we bring any relief to your suffering?
Pray for my expiation to come.
Now, Marco, we are here talking about vaccination in babies, and now we stream this case of a criminal reincarnating on the earth, reported in the book Heaven and Hell by Kardec. Though apparently they have nothing to do with it, but there is always a topic about expiation, as we say in Spiritism, and the choices we make in our lives. Can you make your comments for us, please, regarding the highlights for you regarding this case, Marco?
Certainly, Vanessa. I think, first of all, it's a very touching description of such a tragic situation in general. But at the same time, I think that's one of the most important things. If we go deeper into the answers that the Spirit is bringing to us at that point, there's so much we can learn from it. So even from this tragic situation where we thought probably if we're looking at with our physical eyes only, we'll be all shocked and dismay. But looking from the spiritual side of view, we see a very conscientious spirit for the situation that he's going through, of what he's done and what he has to do. And I think, transforming that, picturing that in our lives today, I think that's a valid message for all of us. And even considering, like you said, the vaccinations and non-vaccinations and all that, we have to understand why are we here, how can we do better, how can we progress, and how can we avoid stumbling through the same issues that we've done so many times in our existences. And I think that's a perfect example for it, because he's done that before. He's asked for a lot in this new incarnation. He thought he was prepared. He fell again. And that's all what we do every day, incarnated or discarnated. We are exposed to situations where we have to react, we have to judge, we have to make decisions. And those decisions have significant consequences not only in our lives, but in the lives of many other people. And that's where Jesus and his words and his actions primarily would show us where to go. And the more we close our eyes for those words from Jesus, the higher our chances of stumbling again and again and again and again for multiple times. And the more we open our eyes for the laws of God, for Jesus' teachings, and for what, even science tells us sometimes, I think we should make appropriate decisions based on all that, and certainly help, pave our way into a better existence, like a developing soul, like what we all do.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Marco. Thank you so much again for being with us at Kardec Radio and for bringing so much important information about this very controversial topic that will yet become better understood to the whole public. Thank you so much, Marco. Many blessings to you and the whole family, and also the group in Toronto, okay?
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Again, it is always a pleasure to be here. I feel honored to have a chance to talk to you and to so many people about these important topics, and if I can make one little contribution, I'm always happy to do it. And I think just as a final thought,
sure.
I don't want to be pushing people one way or the other. That's not the role here. But I just wanted people to think carefully when they're making decisions for their babies. Of course, we have to we have to weigh in the safety and the happiness of our kid, but we also have to think in the next 20, 30, 50 years, what are the decisions we're making now are going to represent in 50 years? And because at some point we're going to be discriminating and they're going to be on their own. And I think what we do now will have severe consequences into who they are as human beings for the next generation.
Wonderful. Yes, you're right. We have to be socially responsible too. Thank you so much, Marco. We are very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, dear listener, Marco Magalhães is one of the hosts at Kardec Radio every Sunday. We have the program at 8 p.m. named the Spiritist Awareness. Hosts from around the world, bridging up Spiritism to your daily lives. And this is the very segment that Marco Magalhães and Joyce Magalhães coordinate Spiritism in your life. So right now, to wrap up the program, we're going to pray. Of course, Marco said here to us, prayer can also be a vaccine for the soul. It can be a way for us to be stronger. And another idea of vaccination, which is very interesting, teaching spirituality to your child is vaccinating your child against the future turmoils of life. When problems happen, the child will be vaccinated. So don't wait for your child to be older to give them the best spiritual education that you can give. Because when you're giving spiritual education now, like Spiritism, you are giving them vaccines that will protect them from the problems in the future life. It's not that they won't experience problems, but they will go through in a much stronger way. And it's more likely than not that they are going to overcome obstacles without self-inflicting problems and without creating problems for others as well, and bouncing back up from the issues that are created to educate ourselves. So, dear listener, let us pray. Prayer is a great way to strengthen our souls. Dear Mother, Father God, today we'd like to pray together, all of us around the world. Pray for all the scientists who are working day in, day out to create solutions for a better life on the earth. As Emmanuel said once, they are true missionaries of life. May they feel the inspiration from you and keep on leading their journey on the progress for humanity. We also pray for doctors, nurses, therapists who work especially with babies. May they feel the inspiration to reach out to each and every baby, being kind, loving, compassionate. And we hope that the millions of children who are around the world and do not have access to vaccines, may we work more diligently. That's our prayer, dear Lord, so we can bring to them the blessed opportunity of being vaccinated so they can be stronger, and being stronger, they can fulfill their roles in this very reincarnation, and so be it. Dear listener, now we'd like to share with you that next week we have an interview that is going to be broadcast to you with Dr. Sergio Tizin. He's going to be talking about Spiritist approach on mental illness. Fascinating. I think you should be here. Join, participate, and don't forget, Kardec Radio is here to nourish your soul. And we are here live every Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the rest of the week, what do? You listen to the on-demand programs, because after all, Kardec Radio is on iTunes, Tuning Radio, blogtalkradio.com, KardecRadio.com. We're here to nourish your soul, make your life easier by listening to the beautiful teachings of Spiritism and bridging them up with the whole world. Thank you so much, and many blessings.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.